Dr. Marie Fang, licensed psychologist. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with anxiety from a biblical perspective. And we're going to be going into Philippians to hear a little bit about what Paul has to say about anxiety. Here's what Paul says in Philippians 4, verses 6 through 7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. How lovely that we have access to some tools for dealing with anxiety right in the Bible. So I'm so glad that Paul is talking about this. We're going to talk about this verse a little bit today to help us deal with our anxiety wherever you might be feeling anxious, if that applies for you. Now, there's something I want to say about this verse because I think a lot of us have a tendency to read it in a way that can then be a bit unhelpful for us in our anxiety. As we read the verse, it's tempting to see it as a checklist for the magical recipe that will help you overcome your anxiety. Like if you can check all the boxes listed in there, like, yep, I prayed, check. I did it with thanksgiving, check. I did it constantly, 24/7, check. And fill in the blanks of the other check boxes, then magically my anxiety is going to go away. Here's the problem with this idea. We are not perfect and we are never going to get that checklist right. So if we see it as a checklist, we're setting ourselves up for failure, most likely for more anxiety at best, that we're going to just be anxious about getting this checklist done, this to-do list done that was just impossible for us to ever do. And at worst, we might also feel shame, like there's something wrong with me that I can't even get this right. And that's a dangerous world to enter into, so I'm going to pull you back if you've meandered down that path. And I think we get a little more insight if we keep reading in Philippians to see what Paul says afterwards. So we just read verses 6 through 7. Let's take a look at verse 8. So again, we're in chapter 4. Paul says in verse 8, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." So I think this stands in a little bit of contrast to what we just read, right? Here's this idea, bring everything to God, pray constantly with thanksgiving. And he keeps going and saying, dwell on things that are good, true, noble, praiseworthy. So there's something that we need to listen to at the same time. So not only are we spewing out potentially things that we're worried about, things that we're anxious about, but there's something that we need to receive in response. So I think there's something lovely that can happen if we allow our interaction with God to be more dynamic, where we're saying, God, here's what I'm anxious about. Here's what I'm worried about. I need you to remind me of what's true and what's good. And from that place, we can receive that, hopefully, and learn to let go of some of our anxiety. So for example, it could look like you're worried about that exam or that job interview. You're anxious that maybe you're not going to do well, you're not going to get the grade, you're not going to get the job. All very real concerns. And I think what's going to be helpful to you is to pray, read the Bible, reach out to a loved one or a spiritual mentor, and seek out God's truth. And the truth is not going to look usually what you want it to look like. It's not going to be, don't worry, God promises you'll get that A, or you'll get that job always, or fill in the blank. But there's probably something more important than that that is true and that matters much more, even if you don't get the grade. Even if you don't get the job, you're going to be okay. And there's no reason to be anxious about it. So I hope you find this reflection helpful to you in whatever anxiety you may be feeling. I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on where you might be feeling anxious and where you might be able to invite some of God's truth and goodness into that experience. Again, I'm Dr. Marie Fang, and I hope you have a lovely day.